Chosen podcast. I'm Jake.
And I'm Jess. Okay, so right off the bat, season 2, episode 1 of The Chosen Thunder, throws you for a loop. It starts decades later. John's older, and he's trying to figure out how to tell this huge story. You've got all the disciples there with him. And it really makes you wonder, why are they all together now after all this time? What are they doing? And why is John only just now trying to write everything down? It's such a hook. Oh, and for this deep dive into thunder, we've got a ton of different sources we're looking at. The Jewish backgrounds, some reviews, even study guides. The goal is to give you, the listener, the juiciest bits, saving you time, but still getting the full picture.
Oh, it totally grabs you. It flips the script a little bit. Instead of a straightforward story about what Jesus did during his ministry, we're seeing how they thought about it later, how they remembered it years down the line. It's like thinking back on big events in your own life. You don't just remember them in order, you go back to certain moments. So back to that flash forward. It's 62 AD, and we see John struggling to start his gospel. He's got those famous words, "In the beginning was the Word." Powerful stuff. But you can tell he's wrestling with it.
It's like he's searching for the right way to describe something almost impossible to describe. And he's not doing it alone. He's talking to the other disciples, putting all their memories together. It makes you realize the Bible isn't just one voice. It's all these different stories all woven together. And that's so important. Showing the human side, not just facts, but real people telling their stories about Jesus based on what they live through. And I think that back and forth, that jumping between timelines from this future to right after season 1 in Samaria really keeps things interesting without being too overwhelming.
Yeah, it's a good structure. It lets us see the things that John's going to write about later, the struggles, teachings, miracles, all becoming seeds for his gospel. So in this deep dive, we're tackling big themes. John's opening and Genesis, the surprisingly human disciples, Jesus in Samaria, the lost sheep with Melech, and of course, James and John, the sons of thunder. Let's start with that Genesis connection. It's really something how similar John's gospel and Genesis are. Like John 1.1 to 5 and Genesis 1.1 to 5, they both start with "in the beginning" and talk about light coming into darkness.
Yeah, but there's a big difference. Genesis is about the creation of the world. John's talking about the Word, which means Jesus. He's saying Jesus was there from the very start. So John's echoing Genesis on purpose. It's not just coincidence. He's saying that Jesus isn't just a man, he's eternal, part of creation. You see that struggle in how John thinks about starting his gospel, Jesus' birth, his family, even Abraham. But he ends up going all the way back to the beginning. It's like he's saying you can't understand Jesus just by looking at his life. He's way bigger.
Oh, for sure. And shifting gears a bit, the disciples in this episode really struck me as so human, so flawed. I mean, they're bickering, they're jealous. They even wonder if Jesus has favorites. It's like watching a family drama unfold. And that's what makes them relatable. They weren't perfect saints. They were just normal people with their own hang-ups. And that makes their whole journey even more amazing, because if these flawed guys could become apostles and spread the gospel, then maybe anyone can do great things.
Jess, you see this especially in how they react to Jesus's instructions. Like James and John, they're totally annoyed when Jesus tells them to plow a field. They're like, seriously? We're supposed to be following the Messiah and we're stuck with farm work? They were expecting power and glory. It shows the difference between what people expected from a leader and how Jesus actually led servant leadership. And then there's Samaria. Talk about a tense situation. centuries of bad blood between the Jews and the Samaritans, different places of worship, Mount Gerizim versus the temple in Jerusalem, just a ton of distrust.
Oh, yeah, deep rooted conflict. For Jesus to go there as a Jew to preach there, it was a huge deal. But even in the middle of that division, Jesus reaches out, goes right to the people considered enemies. It's highlighted by that invitation from the high priest of Sychar to have dinner. So just the idea of them having a meal together was like walking a tightrope. The Samaritans weren't even allowed to worship at the temple in Jerusalem, so they were pushed to the sidelines. Now let's talk about Melech. Thunder takes the parable of the lost sheep and kind of retells it through Melech. Jesus tells James and John to go plow Melech's field.
Yeah, and it turns out Melech is implied to be the robber from the parable of the Good Samaritan. He's the guy who beat up the traveler. And now here's Jesus, a Jew, showing this incredible compassion for him, even sending his disciples to work for him. It's a total reversal. It's like he's saying, even people who've done terrible things can be forgiven. And Melech himself is carrying a ton of guilt. Jesus tells him to believe my words, return to synagogue, search Torah. And then he explains that even though Melech couldn't read, he could still hear the scriptures being read aloud, showing how important oral tradition was.
It's a powerful moment. And speaking of stories, we got to talk about James and John, the sons of thunder. Where did they get that nickname anyway? Well, it probably came from their personalities. They were known for being super passionate, even a little aggressive at times. We definitely see that when they want to call down fire on the Samaritans. They're like, let's just wipe them out. They had a lot of zeal, maybe a little too much sometimes. It's a very human reaction, though, right? When someone wrongs you, you want to hit back.
But what's really interesting is how Jesus responds. He doesn't condone their anger, he rebukes them. But he also acknowledges their passion, saying it can be a good thing if it's channeled for righteousness. It's like he sees the potential and the danger. And before we wrap up, those details that ground the episode in its Jewish context are great. Like mentioning Shiva, the mourning period for Big James, or Jesus reciting the Modeh Ani prayer. And in the Samaritan synagogue, the Torah scrolls kept in the special ark, the Yad pointer, showing so much respect. Also, the detail about Jesus reading what looks like Genesis 1.1, but the scroll being Isaiah 40.1. Whether artistic or production, it adds a layer.
Yeah, and the tallit, the prayer shawl with tassels reminding of God's commandments. And it's all these little things that create a rich picture. So as we wrap up, what are the big takeaways? For me, it's the human side of it all. John's struggle, the disciples' flaws, but then Jesus radiating compassion, especially for the overlooked. These ancient stories still resonate. We see it in how people relate, the challenges of faith, the power of forgiveness. It reminds us that even those closest to Jesus were still learning. So here's something to think about. How do you make sense of important figures being human, making mistakes? What are the seeds being planted in your life right now? What's the thunder inside you, and how can you use it for good? Thunder definitely gives us a lot to chew on.
Thank you so much for joining us in this incredible deep dive. Keep those questions coming. Keep analyzing. Keep diving deep. And most importantly, keep watching. Until next time.